Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of NC-17. My name is Josh, and today we have actor, writer, director, you name it, he's done it. We got Chris Kato. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Uh, it's my pleasure. I always say our honor because I have co-hosts that are never here, but I think I'm crazy now.
Oh, I like
uh
I like the setup behind you too, like all the movies.
oh yeah. Yeah,
Are
this
those all horror films?
yes.
Oh, nice.
So
Quite the
th-
collection.
oh yeah. Well, down here in the studio slash man cave slash where my wife lets me put all my stuff. It's all horror stuff down here. And then like the comedies and everything else is upstairs. So
So this is your stash.
yeah.
It's impressive.
Oh, thank you. And somewhere in here, I do have a couple movies that you are involved with. I just
Oh,
can't dig them out right now because I don't know exactly where they are.
oh, okay.
uh, so yeah. So before we get into the movies and everything, and kind of like the excitement of the entertainment world, kind of take us back a little bit. At what age did you realize this is what you wanted to do for a living?
Um, so I remember distinctly that when I was 12 years old, I had three career paths mapped out for me. Like I was either going to be a professional baseball player. That was the first pursuit. I was going to be an actor and go in the film industry, or I was going to go to the military and then go into law enforcement. And funny enough, that third one, I did kind of get into that world a little bit because I worked as a juvenile detention counselor and security officer. But the first one didn't work out, so I pivoted to the second one, which is acting, and that's where I still am. Um, and it didn't really materialize until later, um, where I got solicited by this kind of a scammy acting modeling school, and I went and kind of got the first taste of like what LA is. And uh, I didn't end up signing with them, but I also found an acting school where closer to where I was living in Orange County, and called the Performance Academy. And I went there. I met who became my mentor, Jeff Salentano. He's a former actor. Now he's a director. He just directed that movie, The Hill, that came out with Dennis Quaid. And he's got a couple other things coming out pretty soon. But he basically taught me how to act from the ground up. I met a lot of people there. I've forged like lifelong friendships, and that's basically what got me. Like I just kind of fell in love with it. It took me a while to open up because acting is a pretty vulnerable thing, and I was, very closed off at the beginning. I think like a lot of new actors are because it's hard. You are emotionally just vulnerable. So it took me a while to open up to it, but once I did, and I really loved it, I decided like this is what I have to do now. If I had known how long it was going to take, from the beginning, I don't know if I would have, but like when you're young, dumb, and naive, and you're just getting started, I'm like, oh, I'll be successful within the year or two, like things will happen. And it doesn't work like that.
Oh yeah. Uh, so in learning your craft and kind of like you said, being taught pretty much from floor up, was that a hard transition? Because like you said, you were kind of, closed off a little bit and everything like that. Was it hard to kind of navigate that world at first? Because I mean, you're new to it, and it's yeah, you got a mentor, but was your like your inner demons, not inner demons, but like your insecurities, did they hold you back if you had any?
Yeah, they probably did stifle me a little bit. Like, part of it is just ignorance. Like, I just didn't know any better. And I'm learning everything for the first time. I'm also getting sometimes contradictory advice. So, like, I didn't really know what to believe. I also didn't know things about like your look as an actor, quote unquote look. I to me, I'm like, well, I'm an actor. I can do anything. Like I don't want to be pigeonholed into like a look, but and I also didn't know what my look was, and I'm still not completely sure what my look is. I think I've just kind of settled on everyman, like, but like it's, because I'm not like, 6'4" and ripped to be like a leading man, and I'm not like, 5'4" portly with a giant beard that makes me like, the comedic, relief, so I kind of fell somewhere in the middle. And you know, I like there were some people that were trying to get me to adapt to certain looks. Like I had my hair grown out for a little while, and they wanted me to be a little more like bad boy skatery kind of thing. I didn't really see much success with that. I think if I had glasses, I might have been, the nerdy kid. I probably could have done that. But I don't. So, and like, because every look has like a stereotype that they're going for, and like if you're smart, you fit into one of those, and you'll find more work that way. And I never really bought into it, and part of it was because I didn't know. And I tried other people's advice, and that didn't seem to work either. So that's still a confounding thing for me. And I found that like creating my own work was the best way to get myself out there.
Oh yeah. So speaking of your work, kind of walk us to the point to where the first project you had, was it a writing project, directing, or acting? I'm kind of thinking it's going to be acting, but I'm could be wrong.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was acting. I mean, technically, like writing goes all the way back, because before I got into movies and stuff, like I was writing short stories and like creating things like, oh, I could write a book. And I was doing that, as a kid, like a young kid, and of course, I never finished any of them. There were some short stories about a baseball player that I wrote that I did finish, but like finish quote unquote, like they don't really have endings. They were just kind of like chapters of something bigger that I never finished. But yeah, my first job as an actor was a movie called Welcome to Paradise. It's a faith-based film with Crystal Bernard and Brian Dennehy. And I had one line. I played a valet that parked one of the characters' cars. Um, so that was my first thing, and that was really early into my career. And it was a lot of fun. The director, Brent Huff, he's Smitty on The Rookie. He's been a friend for a long time, and some of my short films I've cast him in. So we've helped each other out, and he's one of the best people in the business. Um, but yeah, that was the first start, and then writing. You know, when I was in college, I started writing more as like because those were assignments and stuff. So that's where I was forced to like kick myself to sit down and finish the screenplay, and so I wrote a bunch of stuff there. Some shorts got made because like I made them in class or whatever. But the features, of course, languished for a long time. But yeah, that was the beginning of that. And but I didn't get like paid work until much later.
Yeah. Uh, so Brian Dennehy's a big name. Like I've seen your filmography. You've worked with some pretty good people, my friend. You know, I so when you're being cast in certain movies, especially in the early part of your career, and you're realizing who's being the stars and stuff like that, did you kind of like try to take as much of that in as possible from every person you can talk to, and just kind of take their advice and kind of horn it into what you wanted it to be?
Um, I was like a little timid, at that point to really approach them. And I don't know how open some of them would have been. Like Brian Dennehy, I've actually did two movies that he was in, but I never worked with him. And the second movie that I did was the one right after Cat City, and I got cut out of that, so I didn't end up there. And Brent directed that as well, and I played a valet again, and he thought that would be kind of fun to play valet in two different movies. But I got cut out. But the on Welcome to Paradise, my scene was with Brian Dennehy's daughter, so I worked with her, and she volunteered me to go, hey, do you want to meet Brian Dennehy? And I'm like, sure, and like I knew him from like Tommy Boy, that was kind of my Brian Dennehy. But like I went and I followed her to the trailer and she was like, hey, daddy, and she kind of like, and you could tell like he's like, oh God. So he gets up and kind of comes down the steps and he takes a picture, which is online, and it was a really nice thing. He didn't say much. He just took the picture and he smiled and then he went back in the trailer. But it was really nice of his daughter Elizabeth Dennehy, to do that for me because I don't know if she could tell that I was too nervous or whatever. But like I when Brian Dennehy passed, I did kind of an online eulogy that told that story, and I reached out to Elizabeth Dennehy about it, and she I think appreciated that too, because it's a a blip for them, but it was kind of a core memory for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's so you say the first thing you was in was kind of like a faith-based film. Do you find yourself kind of attached to some of those films more deeply than you do other films, or do you kind of just go with the flow and just, what seems right for you, you go for?
Yeah, I didn't seek it out. In fact, it didn't really register with me as a faith-based film until after, because I don't really classify films like that. It was just kind of like a family drama. And then I realized, like, of course, it has a spiritual element. Like, Crystal Bernard plays a preacher and stuff, and it's very much about that. But it's not something that I seek out. Like I said, like I don't like to be boxed in. I will do whatever sounds interesting, and I'm interested in a lot of different things. So, and like I'm also in a beggars can't be choosers situation. And so like I don't have my pick of the litter either. So like I kind of go where the work is, um, but like it's all exciting to me, like it's whether it's faith-based, whether it's horror, which are like diametrically opposed usually, except like The Conjuring. The Conjuring is a great like faith-based horror, but those two genres don't meet very often. Well, actually, you can argue like any like Exorcist movie is faith-based in a sense, um, but yeah, like it doesn't really cater to the faith-based audience. But like anything that I've in between, comedies, dramas, I love it all. It's because it's all challenging in different ways. It stimulates different parts of the brain. And I like doing something that I haven't done before. And I feel like I've been pretty good at not really repeating myself too often, which is hard for like a beggars can't be choosers situation. Like it's hard to be able to do that. Part of it is luck, part of it is like I wrote parts for myself, that were a little different than the last thing. And I try to push limits a little bit to, just for my own benefit, like I don't want to be stuck as one thing.
Uh, yeah, I mean, that makes sense because when you do that, then, everyone knows that you only have one lane. So you want to be as versatile as possible, which a lot of people, they get stuck in that one lane.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of hard, but we'll be talking about one of those people later on because you're in a movie with them. But I'll just say Jerry Maguire and American Horror Story. I think you already know who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to talk about a couple other films that you've been in, and I want to talk about Terror Strikes. It's a short, and you play Ryan. Uh,
Yeah.
if you could kind of give us a synopsis of what that is without spoiling anything, and kind of like how your character plays into that one.
Well, that one is a it was a short film that my friend Chris Frint directed. We had kind of collaborated on some stuff in the past. He wanted to direct a short horror film, um, something that was like, less than 5 minutes. So I mocked something up, and my character is kind of a nothing character, kind of the you know the douchey boyfriend type, I guess. But really, it focuses on Mackenzie's character, Mackenzie Rain, who plays the woman in it. You know, because it's really like it's hard not to spoil because the movie's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, true.
it's a creature thing. Um, you know, and like I kind of played the part not out of necessity, but like, for simplicity's sake, the fewer people involved, the more tight knit it is, and it's easier to coordinate and stuff. And he didn't have to pay me for that because it was like a one night shoot. Um, and it was fun getting to practice, writing that short because even my shorts tended to be a little long, so I was kind of working on paring it down. And it premiered at a film festival. I forget where it was. It was in Huntington Beach, but I forget what it was called. And then it was on. I have another friend, Jennifer Nangle, who uh, she has this character like Queen Malvolia, which is kind of a Elvira type, horror host. And then she had a show on YouTube. I don't know if she still does it, but where she like was like Malvolia hosting like short horror films, and that was one of the movies that she picked to do on her show.
All right. So let's talk about one that you've written and you had a voice in. You were uncredited, but Angels Fallen Warriors of Peace, which I did find at Walmart, by the way.
Oh, nice.
uh, I saw your post about it. I was like, damn, I need to tag him about it. But since you're trying to show, I'll just tell you, I did find it at Walmart.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh no, go ahead.
No, it's so that movie came about because I had worked with the director Ali Zamani on Incision, which was the first horror movie that I wrote for him. And he brought me back for this one. It was a sequel to a movie called Angels Fallen, which I didn't have anything to do with. And it was an interesting process because I had to watch the first one a few times, and because I needed to like kind of get what the landscape of the world was because it builds kind of a big world. Um, and then originally what I wrote was more of like a direct sequel. Um, and then Ali came back with it with notes and stuff, and what it turned into was more because like the Cuba Gooding Jr. part, which you alluded to earlier, like that in the first one, Michael Madsen plays that character. So I thought Michael Madsen was going to come back for this one, um, but it didn't happen, and Ali had his. I mean, we considered a bunch of people for that role, and it finally fell to Cuba Gooding, and we all know how tremendously talented he is. And I thought it was kind of a cool get. Um, but uh, but yeah, the movie itself turned out to be more of like a requel. Like it's a sequel, but it's also kind of like a remake of the first one. Like the story beats are pretty much the same. I think Ali wanted another crack at it. I don't know that for sure. You'd have to ask him, but like I assume that that's kind of what he wanted to do because like it was a little bigger than the first one, as far as like production values and budget and stuff. So I think he just kind of wanted to do something similar. I did like there were some direct references to the sequel that I had in there, and a lot of them got cut out. Like at least one is still in there, and I'd have to rewatch it to see if any of the other ones made it in. But like Oh well, yeah, a couple made it in, but like the Denise Richards character in that was also supposed to be the Nicholas Turturro character from the first one, and I don't know what happened with that. Whether like I don't know how it became Denise Richards. That was a kind of behind the scenes thing, but I had to rewrite it to be a different character. But they do reference Nick Turturro's character in that scene, and Michael the Archangel references the main character briefly from the first movie. Um, because both of them are also named Gabriel. The main characters in both movies are both named Gabriel, but they're different people. And I was opposed to that at first. I didn't really like repeating myself, or not repeating myself, but like repeating what the first film did in that way. I wanted to go a different way with it, but again, I think Ali had his sights set on a specific. He wanted to tell this story. And my job is to facilitate, his vision. So, I adapted a lot of note sessions, a lot of back and forth. I can't even count the number of drafts because there were so many like changes along the way, and also like practical things that happened in production. Make brings like we lost a location or something, or they wanted to film somewhere else, so I had to rewrite the scene to fit that. That weapons scene uh, where Denise Richards is like presenting the weapons to the team was written a certain way, and then the weapons that I had written, they didn't acquire those. They had different weapons, so I had to rewrite the scene to fit the weapons that they had bought, and I had to kind of justify why those weapons were being given to those characters because I'd already justified it with the weapons that I had chosen because like, oh, this all makes sense. But this is now like, oh, they're stuck with these weapons, and now I have to figure out a way to make this organically fit each character. And that was a challenge. And I don't know how audiences felt about that. Like, I don't know, like if they were on board with that or not. So
Well, you can definitely be looking forward to sometime this week. I will be doing a full review on it. It'll be about a 10-15 minute review. Just look on my channel and it'll be there.
yeah, can't wait.
Uh, I do want to ask you though, because I know, you like I said, you run the gamut, you write, direct, act, and stuff like that. Which one do you find is kind of like your devil's advocate, the harder one to do, but yet which one do you love the most and which one is the hardest one to do? There we go.
The one I love the most is acting. I still consider myself an actor first and foremost. I also think that it's the hardest to do because it's the most subjective. You know, there somebody has to say yes to you unless you make your own movie and put yourself in it, which is, not easy. But like, unless you do that, then somebody has to cast you. And I still get auditions sometimes that like I know I'm not right for this part. At least like I know I can play it, but I know that they're not looking for someone like me to play this part. And I'm like, I feel like I'm wasting my time. I still do it because like it's always good to at least put yourself on tape, and you know, do the work, because then they might appreciate your talent and they might find something else for you because you never know. And that has happened a couple times. Like there's a movie I just filmed in Washington called Star and Angel was I auditioned for a part that I knew I was not right for. And I even told my agent that like I don't think I'm right for because what I read for was like this trucker. And like I could play a trucker, but like I know what they're looking for when they say like a trucker, and that's not me. Like, and they would never consider me like no matter how good my acting is, because it's also just not that kind of a role where it's like, oh, this is a really, juicy part. It's like a trucker in one scene needs to needs to represent trucker, so the audience can get it and move on and like they don't have to process too much. Because if it was me, a trucker in one scene, they'd be like, he's a trucker, Like they don't need to stop and think about a character that's, only in one scene. Like it's supporting the rest of the story. Um, and I auditioned for that. I was like, all right, whatever. And I sent it in, and it was like months later. Um, they came back and said, hey, they want to book you for this movie, but for this role. And I'm like, oh, I don't like. Can I see the script? Because like I didn't know what that role was that they had booked me for. But yeah, I mean that was just one of the and that role did fit me a little more. I played uh, a like a fast food chain manager kind of thing, kind of a sleaze ball. He well, I don't want to spoil it because the movie is the movie, but like I mean it's a really quick part, um but yeah, more like my type, and people wouldn't really question too much, like, oh, it's this guy. Um, but yeah, so I've had a couple things where like I auditioned for one thing and then I booked something else in it, or I get a call back, but they want me to read for a different part. So it has happened a few times.
I, I'm actually I know what you're talking about because that process literally just got done with what I'm involved with, and I'm like, oh, it was it, it was a lot, but this ain't
Yeah,
about me.
yeah, no, but you said you were casting a movie right now, and so like, did that happen to you? Did you find an actor that read for something and you're like, you know what, maybe they'd be more right for this? And did you have them like reread?
Three times,
Oh, okay.
three different people. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like
But
that.
oh yeah, but I mean, it's knowing what you go through sometimes, what actors go through sometimes to get a part. I'm glad I'm behind the scenes. That's all I'm gonna say. You know,
Well,
but
that comes with its own set of challenges too, though, coming behind the scenes, because then you're dealing with money, and that can be like a backbreaker for most people.
yes, I know that feeling too.
Yeah.
uh, so let's talk about something else you wrote. It's Bang Bang Betty Valerie's Revenge. That's
Uh, yeah, that was a movie. Um, I didn't have a really good time working on that one.
oh,
Yeah, it was not what I set out to write. This was just a creative differences kind of a thing. And I felt I mean I don't want to go too deep into it, but like it was not a pleasant experience. I wrote a draft of that movie, which was, maybe 30% what they ended up shooting. Um, and and yeah, there was a lot of stuff in it that I wouldn't have approved of. But again, it's one of those things where like you're hired to facilitate the director's vision. The thing is that I wasn't really clued in on the vision beforehand. So yeah, it for me, like, I just kind of chalk it up and move on. I assume the director made the movie that he wanted to make, and I hope he's happy with it.
all right. Didn't mean to bring up a sore subject. I'm sorry. Uh, you also wrote for something that I consider to be one of the most classic, iconic movie franchises of all time. You wrote one episode of Ghostbusters Station Six. Uh, so
Yeah.
th- that's awesome because now your name is synonymous with a very well liked franchise.
Yeah, not only that, I played Oscar Barrett. I played the baby from Ghostbusters 2. And that was like, I don't know, that was a huge deal. So my friend Chris Tomlinson, I know a lot of Chris's. But Chris Tomlinson is the biggest Ghostbusters fan that I know. He might be one of the biggest in the world. And he's been dying to, like, we were talking about doing a Ghostbusters project for uh, a, let's see, how long I've known him almost 20 years, and probably at the beginning of that, we were talking about like how cool would it be to do a Ghostbusters thing, and obviously like we don't have the rights to Ghostbusters, so this is all like fan stuff. Um, but he spent a lot of time and a lot of personal money to go into this, and it was his passion project. Like this was his white whale, and he 3D printed all of the like equipment that we used, on the shoot, to like to the T. Like the specs are like immaculate, and because he's a big fan, so he's doing the ultimate fan service by doing it. Um, you asked about the writing. We kind of kicked around ideas, um, you know, years ago. I wrote like a draft of that. Really, Tomlinson wrote the first, like, he developed a story. We knew that it was going to be Oscar, and we knew like some of the people that we wanted to cast, because some of my actor friends, Joey Cinco, who plays Specs in it. My friend Ronnie, Veronica, she plays Veronica in the show. We knew we wanted them in it, so like we knew to like write around those characters. We just thought, because just knowing them, we just thought they would make good Ghostbusters. Um, but like Tomlinson wrote the story, and then he wrote the first draft or two, maybe. And then I came in, I wrote it, and mine had a lot more references and like kind of in jokes, like for fans of Ghostbusters. And then Tomlinson like kind of pared some of those down because he didn't want all of them in there, which is fair. And then he wrote the last two, like and some of the at this point it got so muddled, like I don't really know what I contributed to it, because like I have my draft of the script still, so like if I watch it and I can follow along, I noticed that like even some lines that I wrote, he changed part of the line, so that's why it was confusing to me. So it's like I thought I wrote that, but that doesn't sound all familiar. um but yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those things where like it's his project. um we much like we shared our vision, pretty clearly on this one, though. And it was intended to be a series. We wanted to do multiple episodes. We had an unsuccessful crowdfunding campaign. We reached out to some people, and it just wasn't in the cards. And like the problem is that it's a fan thing. We can't make money off of it, so it's hard for people to put money into it. We've been talking about retooling it as maybe a podcast, scripted podcast, because we have other episodes like written, so we might adapt it and just do voices for it, and you know it'll be more mindful of everybody's schedules, and we could still tell the story we want to tell. Um, and who knows? We might even do the first one over again as a podcast. That might be interesting too. Like have another bite at the apple, I guess, because we'd have to rewrite it to fit a podcast format.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's something that we considered as well. But that project was a lot of fun. It's a little rough around the edges, because like again, we didn't have a ton of resources on it. But for the most part, I'm really proud of how that turned out.
Uh, so let's kind of talk about a couple things that you've directed or are going to direct or hopefully direct. Let's talk about Forgetting Regret. It's a short film, uh, 2012. Can you kind of tell us what that story is and how that all came to be?
Yeah, that was my most successful short film. And it was also my longest. It was like 29 minutes. And that was really, I had directed two short films prior to that were both comedies. And I also wasn't really in them. I did Kissing School for Losers, which I wasn't in at all. and I did Alien Abdiction, which was my short film that I did in college, and that I had kind of like a cameo in, um, that I also worked with Chris Tomlinson on. But I wanted to do something that would be more beneficial for me as an actor because I felt like I was veering away from that. And I wanted to like kind of reground myself and like, I am an actor. I want to do something that supports that. And if I'm going to put all this, time and energy into a project, I want it to benefit that part of me. And, I think the first two was more like I was just overwhelmed, having to make a movie, like writing and directing and stuff and getting it all the pieces together, that adding acting on top of that seemed overwhelming. But after having those two under my belt, I'm like, well, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna just, I'm gonna write and direct it. I'm gonna play the lead, and not only the lead, but I was in every scene. Um, and it was just it was uh, it was a story about a young single father, who like a teen father that that whose girlfriend dies in childbirth, uh, and he had this promising like baseball scholarship that goes away because now he's a single father and he has to take care of his daughter, and he's estranged from his family. He's estranged from his girlfriend's family, who was kind of helping support at the beginning. Um, and I've seen a lot of like single parent stories, but I don't see a lot of like young single father stories. It's kind of like a single mother story, but from the perspective of a father. You know, and I thought that was interesting to me, and I thought that was something that I could do. Um, and I wrote like my friend Veronica, who was in Ghostbusters, she was in that. Brent was in that. I called in a bunch of favors to get that movie made, and that's you know as a director, that's my proudest movie. I think that's my strongest piece. Um, and I thought like my performance was good in it. And that's always something that you wonder about, like if you're directing, who's going to tell me if something's not working, so like uh and because I also wrote it, so I'm not even interpreting someone else's thing. So it's like I wrote it, I'm directing it, and I'm starring in it. Like who's going to tell me if I'm off base, but I think it worked out. And yeah, I went to several festivals with that. I won one of them. um and yeah, I'm really proud of that film. Again, there are some things that make me cringe watching it now. I haven't seen it in a while, but like the last time I watched it, it's still like but I'm a little more forgiving about that. Just and that movie was a process to get made and finished. A lot of post production issues, issues with sound and stuff. So like because we shot all practical locations. These were kind of areas around Orange County, like where I lived. And you know, when you're in the elements, you can't control the elements, so you're just trying to sneak shots. And I'm like, well, I hope the sound is okay. We did a lot of ADR on it, which can make the movie sound a little hollow. But luckily, I mean, we had some good people on that to make it not sound like that. And again, there are certain things that like kind of make me cringe, but overall, I'm really proud of how that turned out.
Okay. All right. So I do a little bit of research on every guest that comes onto this show, and you happen to be wearing a shirt. So let's talk about your love for the Dodgers.
Yeah. Um, yeah, lifelong. Um, and I my whole family Dodger fans, like my dad, my brothers, his parents were Dodger fans. My mom's parents were Dodger fans before the Diamondbacks came in because they live in Arizona. The D-backs came and then all of a sudden they were traders and like but yeah, just again, baseball was my first love, my first obsession. Um, and like I've mentioned baseball a couple times just in like the projects that I've worked on because it's just something that really resonates with me. I still want to do, a baseball project, like a true baseball project. Um, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. I've written a pilot that's about a college pitcher trying to make their way to the major leagues. Um, that I really think would be a cool project to work on. But I also have other baseball ideas. Some are written down, you know, uh, and I would love to make something that represents the Dodgers, like the player plays for the Dodgers. We could shoot at Dodger Stadium and stuff like that would be so cool to me. Um, I'm looking for ways to marry the two. Like my love for film and my love for baseball. I would love to combine them. Like I would love to create the seminal baseball film. Because I don't like a lot of there have been a lot of great baseball films, but there's no like one like oh that's the one. And not that I think that I can pull off the one, but like because it is subjective, but like I would love to at least contribute to the pantheon of because like there's Jaws, there's the shark movie, and then all the other shark movies, but there's not something like for baseball. There's not the baseball movie, because you ask 10 different people, you'll probably get five different answers, like it'll be Field of Dreams, it'll be The Sandlot, Bull Durham, Major League, The Natural, like it's people will say different products because whatever it resonates with them, but I love baseball movies and yeah, huge Dodger fan. Uh, and I suffered through a lot of tumultuous Dodger years before they became the dominant force that they are now and have been for the last decade or so. So like I feel like that it's being paid back now because I suffered through a lot of heartache. Like the Dodgers, they won the World Series in 1988. They didn't win another postseason game until 2004. And I just remember like how hopeless it was every year. Maybe this is the year, and like they would always just lose. Usually they wouldn't even make the playoffs. Um, and yeah, so like I'm happy that the Dodgers are where they are right now.
Oh yeah. Speaking of baseball movies, I want to kind of get your idea and your opinion on this because, like you said, there are a lot of good baseball movies out there. I don't have a particular favorite baseball movie, but one that I see that I thought was really good that is hardly ever talked about is For the Love of the Game.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, I love that movie.
like a lot of my friends and just people in my inner circle, they're like, that's like maybe the my 31st favorite baseball movie. I was like, there's 31 baseball movies, okay, but it to me, it's like that. I mean, yeah, you got Major League, you got your comedy, you got Bull Durham, which is drama and comedy and stuff like that. But to me, For the Love of the Game kind of resonates with people because of the emotion. Because this is a guy at the end of his career, he knows it,
Mhm.
and he's willing to go out there for that one more chance. And to me, that's what makes that movie good. So,
Yeah, and he throws the game of the lifetime. He threw
yes.
a perfect game at age like 41 or whatever he's supposed to be. Um, yeah, I felt that movie was really authentic, and I really appreciated that. And that's a Sam Raimi movie, which is really like unlike most Sam Raimi movies. Uh, and I think he relied a lot on consultants. I don't know because I thought I read something where he likes baseball, but he's not like a huge baseball fan. So like he relied on other people, but like it felt really authentic. Um, and in fact, like when I talk about the baseball movies I want to make, I kind of model that one because like that one had enough of like the in-game feel, because a lot of baseball movies don't really focus on like on the field stuff. It's usually like the behind the scenes antics, which is, you know, what I think makes it appeal to non-baseball people. And I like For Love of the Game. is like the least successful of Costner's baseball movies, and I don't know if that's why. Like, I don't know if it was too baseball. Um, so I'm not sure like why that movie didn't resonate with people because it was also a love story, with Kelly Preston and like he's balancing baseball and his love life, and he has the daughter that he's trying to raise and um so like that I think anybody can relate to. um and I also think like even from a baseball perspective, like I think people can relate to not wanting to give up your dream yet, like that kind of transcends any profession, just any interest that somebody might have. Like, I don't want to give up yet, I still have something left to offer. um and I think that resonates. So like I'm not sure why or maybe just people didn't want that movie from Sam Raimi. Maybe they were just waiting for him to make another Evil Dead or something, but like I liked it. I didn't know it was Sam Raimi when I first saw it, but like uh, but I really enjoyed that movie. And also Vin Scully, the famed Hall of Fame Dodger broadcaster, was a big presence in that movie because he was the broadcaster calling the game. Um, and he had some great quotes in that, you know. So and again, being a big Dodger fan, hearing Vin Scully's voice, one of the like, people say like who's the person you want to narrate your life, and everybody says Morgan Freeman, and like for me it's Vin Scully. Like that's just the pinnacle of storytelling. In fact, so I've done like I took voiceover as well, and two of the instructors are were huge Dodger fans, and both cited Vin Scully as inspirations because Vin Scully, is a great storyteller. And it's he doesn't tell stories in the same ways that we tell stories, but like he does tell stories. He tells them more literally, like he actually tells stories. But he has a way of just like enveloping you in this world, and like you kind of just buy into it. Everything sounds so like genuine and like wow, like he just takes you on a journey, and he does it in this like grandfatherly way. And he did it for over 60 years, almost 70 years. um like my grandparents remember listening to him. It's pretty incredible the legacy that he left.
Oh yeah. Uh, we're gonna talk about one more movie. We're kind of coming toward the end of the episode. One more movie you've directed that I personally wanted to save this one. I don't want you to spoil it though, because it ain't out yet. Uh The Stonebridge Inn.
Well, the Stonebridge Inn isn't like, we've been trying to get that made for years. And we've had some almosts. Um, like we've had people sign on and drop off, and it's just one of those like endless cycle movies. I would still like to see it get made. And I'm more willing at this point to change the dynamic of it if it helps. Like if somebody else wanted to take the role of director, um, recast or whatever. The script could probably use a polish because I haven't touched it in a while. Um, I would love to see it get made, and I'm open to other interpretations of it if that helps it get made. Because now I've been involved in so many other projects since then that like I'm not as married to it as I used to be. So, if someone was interested, because I do think it's like an old school kind of horror slasher. Um, it's set in like one location basically. Uh, and it's sorority sisters and a killer in the house, and like who the killer is kind of um not really a twist, but there is a twist element to it. Um, and I think it could be really really cool because it's about family. A lot of my projects tend to be about family. And I don't know why that is. Maybe because family is important to me, but like I like the bonds that people create. Um, those are the strongest bonds, like the family bond. So, and family can be who you're blood related to, but it could also be just who you come up with, like, that's my family, especially people that didn't have blood relatives, like they create a family somewhere else. Um, and how strong that bond is, like that's what that movie is about to me. Uh, and yeah, I hope it sees the light of day. We'll see. The producer Stephen Chang, he's been working tirelessly trying to get that thing going. I really admire his tenacity, because he's got so many like collaborators that he wants to work with. So he's trying to get this project off the ground, and so I'm really pulling for him.
All right. All right. I'm going to give you the floor for the next couple minutes. You can plug your socials where people can or cannot reach out to you. That's entirely up to you. Plug your where they can see your movies and just kind of keep track of what you got coming out and kind of keep up to date with what you got going on.
Well, so Angels Fallen Warriors of Peace. It's on DVD at Walmart. It's also on streaming on Amazon Prime, I believe, and Tubi. The horror movie that I wrote, Incision, that's on Tubi right now. Uh, the Ghostbusters Station 6 that we mentioned is on YouTube. And then like most of the short films that I directed that we mentioned are on YouTube. I think all of them actually. A couple of them are actually on IMDb. Like if you go to the IMDb page, you can watch the movie on the page. And yeah, I got a couple other things in the works, that I'm excited about. I got hired to write another movie, so I'm working on that right now. It's like a kind of a horror film noir, which I'm pretty excited about. And my socials, I'm actor Chris Cato, so Kato, Chris Kato, actor Chris Cato. And that's all the handles. Although like really, like I'm on Instagram and that's kind of the main one. Like I don't really post on X, and my Instagram is connected to Threads, but like I don't. I think everything on Threads is what I posted on Instagram, and it just gets shared over there. Like I don't even have a picture up there. But that is how you can find me, actor Chris Cato.
All right. I want to thank you, Chris, for coming on. You've been an all-star. I normally say rock star, but since you're a baseball player, you've been an
Yeah,
all-star.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Repping the Dodgers.
uh, it's been one of the best conversations I've had because getting into the industry, it's always good knowing where the starts of others began. And you, my friend, you've trailed you're a trailblazer in your own right because you've done what you've done and you refuse to be stuck in one lane. So for that, it's mad respect for you, my friend.
Oh, that's really nice. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh yeah. And everybody make sure you watch all his stuff. You're not going to be upset, trust me. I do own some of them. uh yeah, you've been an all-star. Thank you for coming on. And I always tell everybody once you've been on NC-17, you always have a home with us. You're more than welcome to come on to talk movies, to talk about your projects, or just to say, Josh, you got a booger in your nose, which I clean it out every day. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say something, but then I was like, he'll notice.
and you're funny. That's a good thing. All right. Thank you, and everyone, stay in C17.